Hello everybody, my name's Matt Anderson and welcome to today's topic of daily elevation. And the question today is, at what point in your life were you most confident? And I love this question because I always feel like people can answer it right away, and that it's not hard to think of, even if it was just not a fleeting moment, but a relatively short-lived period of time. It might have been 2 or 3 hours. It might have been some kind of sporting event where you just, for some reason, all the stars aligned and you had an amazing game. I certainly know that was one of my personal experiences that was like that, where you were just the dominant person. But it could have been a longer period of time. It could have been a summer for you. It could have been more than that. It could have been several weeks, maybe even longer, that you just felt like everything was working and everything was in sync and all areas of your life were going well. And so again, the purpose of this is not to then move the brain forward to what then didn't work, but to really focus on that time and how you felt. And the things that I want you to take away from that moment, I've got several. And the first one is, you've been there before. So it's terribly important to understand that you've been there before means you can go there again. And not to see this as some kind of fluke or freaky accident, that this was really you that had this experience in this period of time. And so I think what's terribly important is point number 2, is that what you need is a foundation. And what I mean by that is, you had a period of time in your life, and maybe you've had many, but times in your life when things have been going really well. And then life happens. Then something comes along that throws us off our path. So just to give an example for myself, I remember the summer of 1996 was absolutely amazing. I fell in love. I had tons of fun. I was running a summer camp, and it was just an amazingly enjoyable 2 months. So many laughs. And then and the romance continued after the summer, but about a month afterwards, in the same week, firstly I got a letter from my mother telling me that my dad was dying of cancer. And this completely rocked my world. She indicated that he probably only had 3 or 4 months left to live. And this was completely incomprehensible to me, because up until then, he'd always been incredibly healthy. And he was only 57 at the time. And then the same week, as I thought, well, obviously I called my girlfriend then to tell her what was going on. She decided that was the day she needed to tell me that a long-distance relationship wasn't something she wanted, and she wanted to start seeing other people. And this was in the same conversation. And it was a completely crushing experience. When I think about that time, there's an enormous black cloud that hanging over it. But the reason I tell this story is because you've had similar types of experiences where things were going swimmingly and then life happens. Some major challenge or crisis comes along, and it happens to all of us. And so that's why when I talk about needing a foundation, what I'm talking about is clarity, really. Now, the ideal clarity is that you know your purpose in life. You know what your why is and why you're doing what you're doing, and that's what gets you out of bed in the morning. My life experience is that most people don't have clarity about that. So in an ideal world, that's something that you would take more time to think about. Some people might consider it writing a personal mission statement, but some might call it defining what success is for you. All of these things amount to something very similar. But it helps give us a foundation that when problems come along, we don't get bowled over. Of course we get shaken and rocked, but it doesn't throw us off for a long period of time. Now, if you're watching this saying, Matt, that sounds like a lot of work, and the truth is it might be. It might require a lot of personal reflection and writing in a diary or journaling, walking in the park, thinking about this. So the easier place to start is to just be clear about what you value. When you think about values, what are your priorities in your personal life and your professional life? Again, so that when a problem comes along, you know that what comes first and where you need to be spending your time. And so that's an easier route to take. So that's what I mean when I talk about foundation. The third thing that I like to talk to, to make it clear on the topic of confidence is it's a process, and that if right now you were to rate your confidence at a 5 out of 10, that it's unlikely that you're going to be at a 10 tomorrow. And that for most of us, it's building up. So if it's going from a 5 to a 6. And so the better question to ask yourself is, if you, however you score yourself, your confidence today, that to think about, what do I need to do to get it one more score higher over the next 1 to 2 days? What needs to happen? And that's a much more practical way of looking at it. But to understand that if you're not feeling very confident today, that you can build on it bit by bit by doing things that make you feel more secure about who you are and where you're going. And so point number 4 that I think bolsters confidence, I hope, is the fact that other people have been there before. Other people have done it. And if other people have done it, you can too. And it's terribly important to believe that there is nothing better or smarter about other people, and that you have the ability to take steps to become more and more confident for all of these reasons. You've been there before. You can identify a more secure foundation of who you are and who you want to be moving forward. That's the other piece to this. In fact, just yesterday I was listening to an Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about his 6 keys to success in life, and that was really his first point. He called it something about trust yourself, he called it. But his real point was, know who you want to be so that other people can dictate that less, that you have that clarity. And then my last point really is, what if this person, when you were most confident, what if that is the real you? Rather than see that day as a fluke, what if actually you just allowed yourself to shine that day? And I'm also willing to bet that there are plenty of decisions that led up to that great day, that it wasn't all chance. So even for myself, when I think about one of the times when I had an amazing athletic experience, when I scored 3 tries in a rugby match, and I felt like nobody could stop me that day, my confidence was very high, but it didn't really come out of the blue. It came because I'd done a lot of training, fitness training, over a long period of time, or fairly long period of time, such that physically I felt in fabulous shape. And so when I was on the field, so it wasn't all chance. My confidence was high because I knew that I'd prepared enormously well. And that's just one isolated example. But I just think it's important that when you think about that moment, you made some decisions that got you to that point. It wasn't all chance. And so all of these things matter. So therefore what I'm saying is, that may be the real you that was showing up that day, and that it was other things, and then it was other, I guess, weaknesses that you had at that time that are somewhere in here. In all likelihood, again, like I said, something came along and it threw you off your game, and you struggle to get back into that game or onto that game. And so these are the things that I think can help you get there. And then, so as I wrap up, what I want to conclude in today's Daily Elevation are, from this conversation, firstly, what's the most important lesson that you have learned from thinking this through? What's the most important lesson that you're taking away from this? I mean, it could be any of these things. Is it that it would be good to get more clear about your purpose or your values, or even just who you want to be over the next 5 to 10 years, or who you want to be even talked about at your funeral? I mean, all of those are useful exercises. Or it could be just understanding, what do I need to do if my confidence today is at a 5 out of 10? What do I need to do to get it to a 6 over the next couple of days? So that's, what's your lesson learned? And therefore, what's your next step? What are you going to do next? Because watching this isn't going to help. It's only what you do differently that helps. And even I'll go so far as to say, what's your next step, or what's your new habit? Maybe you know one thing, for example, exercise would be an easy one. Maybe you just say, I just need to exercise more, or again, and that my habit needs to be building up by exercising more. If I exercised only once this week, well, then next week it needs to be twice, and that's my new habit or my next step. And then lastly, who's going to hold you accountable for doing this next step. And so I would urge you to share what you're going to do with somebody else and say, hey, would you do me a favor and just, send me a text in a week and just find out if I did my 2 workouts, or whatever it is that you want to be held accountable for. Get someone else involved, because it will make you more responsible for taking that action. So that's the topic for today. Confidence. When were you most confident? Matt Anderson, Daily Elevation. See you soon.